Media Dayspring here with a special episode of Power of X-Men to discuss the Giant-Man HasLab and what's going on with it. But before we begin, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Power of X-Men. So, Giant-Man was announced as our HasLab this year in celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Avengers and also Hank Pym. The marketing copy for him reads 60 years of Giant-Man. For 60 years, Hank Pym has been Marvel Comics' resident inventor. As the inventor of Pym particles, he's fought dangers of all sizes as the tiny but mighty Ant-Man and larger-than-life Giant-Man. In 1963, Pym co-founded the Avengers team as one of the original members of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, alongside his wife Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, aka the worst character ever, Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor. He's currently resting at 5,613 backers, and they have 14 days, 11 hours, and 50 minutes to meet their goal of 10,000 backers. Now, when he was announced, we were all kind of happy about it, to be frank with you, Familia, because it was a serious misfire last year with the Engine of Vengeance. And now listen, I had no qualms with the Engine of Vengeance. When I initially saw it, I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, we got Robbie Reyes and we're going to get his car. That's great. It looks fun. It looks great. The price point was $349. It didn't bug me. The price point didn't bug me as much, but I was like, I'm probably not going to back it. And then, you know, they unveiled Madeline Prior, which, by the way, everyone was shocked that they had unveiled Madeline Prior as one of the tiers, even though when they initially announced the Engine of Vengeance, they teased Madeline Prior by showing her brooch on that initial live stream. And they were like, ooh, what is this? Is it evil apple pie? I'll never forget that, because I was like, is that Madeline's brooch? So we knew Madeline was going to come, right? But I didn't back the Engine of Vengeance until they announced Madeline Prior. And I was like, that's great. Let's do it. I listen, if you're going to give me a Madeline Prior figure, I like the car. I like Robbie Reyes. Oh my God, a Mephisto. Oh my God, a Damien Hellstorm. I'm there for it. I'm 100% there for it. So, you know, I went in on the Engine of Vengeance, but I know a lot of people were really upset about it because there were characters like Madeline and Mephisto that you could only get if this project was fully funded. And then the conversation turned to, are they exploiting X-Men fans to drive this HasLab? And then it became an issue about the price point and people just not really jiving with that price point. And I think Hasbro really listened to a lot of the discourse online. And I told you, I've said this before on the podcast, we were at New York Comic Con last year with the Engine of Vengeance, and we went to the Hasbro booth to see the Engine of Vengeance, and we spoke with Dwight on it, and Dwight was very realistic about it. He was here like, yeah, I know, I've seen the stuff online, you know, especially as it pertains to Maddie. Maddie's a character that we've all wanted to do because Dwight is, of course, a big Jean Grey fan, and he was talking about how, you know, I know her comic book counterpart looks very different than this Marvel Legends. It's because this is the only way we can get her approved, and I've designed the torso in such a way that you can swap it out and you can do the underboob. And, you know, I just think Hasbro, the team at Hasbro, they really do care about the fans. They really do care about the market. They really do pay attention to the discourse online. And I've said this, Dwight, Dan, and Ryan, the second all three of them get on a live, or you see them together at a panel or at a convention, there is lightning in a bottle with those three. It gets us all really excited to see what they're going to unveil. What are they going to show us? You can just tell that they are equally as passionate about these figures as the fans are. Now, Giant-Man, we were all really happy to see that when he was unveiled, because they listened to what people were saying. The tiers, no longer are we getting figures as part of the tiers. They're going to be things that are additive to the HasLab figure already. So instead of getting a figure, you're going to get something that's additive to Giant-Man. And I thought that was pretty cool. Now, let's go over the details for Giant-Man here. We have Giant Man at 199, and he stands at 24 inches and 91 points of articulation. That's incredible. It's beautiful. So, what you get if you fund this is at 12,000, you unlock Giant Man Enhancement number 1, a ghoulish display mode, which is the Marvel Zombie faceplate. And the marketing copy is turn your hero into a horror with the Giant Man zombie faceplate inspired by the Marvel Zombies comics. Bring the insatiable hunger of zombified Giant Man to your shelf for a head-turning, brain-eating display. Yeah, that's great. Again, I love that it's a faceplate. Here's where I'm gonna say we don't really have a lot of Marvel zombie figures. So the fact that we have a zombie Giant Man, wow, cool. I'm like, what does this add to your display? But that's fine. Okay. At 14,000 backers, you unlock Giant Man Enhancement number 2, an otherworldly look, which is the Secret Invasion Scroll Head, which this to me is perfect. I would have done the Scroll Head as tier 1. Alternate head transforms figure into Skrull Giant Man, inspired by the Secret Invasion comic story. Display Giant Man as a giant Skrull to imagine the shapeshifter wreaking havoc on Earth. I love the marketing copy so much. And it looks great. The Skrull head looks great. The fact that Secret Invasion just happened on Disney Plus, I know it didn't really land well with most folks, but getting a Skrull head, that's perfect. I love it. To me, that was great. Other things that you get are alternate white antennas. You get multiple face plates with different expressions for his face. Multiple face plates for different expressions with his face. Sorry. I'm hearing how that sounds, but you get what I mean. You can swap out his expressions, his features, and also his eyes, which, by the way, fun fact, these are the most realistic eyes on the Marvel Legends. And Amelia, you know how I feel about Marvel Legends and eyes. This to me, I am so excited that they are able to use the latest technology for eyes on Marvel Legends because these look great. And I hope that one day we can take the technology they're putting on Giant Man and apply it to the 6-inch figures. I mean, you can get 3 different eyes on this HasLab. One where he's looking down as he's about to squish the bad guys. One where he's looking right at you, and another where he's doing a side eye, which is so shady. I love it. Hank Pym, you shady person, you. So I think for $199, given that Legends are $50 for 2 Marvel Legends. I mean, listen, it is what it is. We live in this world where 2 Marvel Legends are $50. You go buy just one, it's 24. You're telling me 24 inches, 91 points of articulation, all these additive things to the figure, 199. That's great. That's a really great price point. And furthermore, Hasbro has done their market research. They saw that we weren't very happy getting figures locked behind tiers because if it doesn't get funded, we don't get those figures. So instead of focusing on bringing characters to the HasLab experience, they're doing things that are additive to the HasLab project itself. I think that's wonderful. I have no qualms with that. But there's something obviously going on here because we're only at 5,613 backers and we only have 2 weeks left. And you would think this is something that would have just been funded right out the gate, or we would at least be close to being funded. Right? I think if we were at in the 8,000 range of backers, I'd be like, oh, that's going to be fine. That's a slam dunk, in terms of backers. It might very well still get back because as we saw with Galatis and the Sentinel, towards the end of the deadline, thousands upon thousands of backers just came in. Now, we have long speculated that when we see those big jumps in the thermometer for the HasLab are those comic book retailers or international orders that are coming in and adding to that number. I don't know. I would love to take a look at how, the action figure market works, how they measure these numbers, how sales go through, etc. But, it's still very possible. But at 5,613, I'm like, and we're only halfway there. It is worrisome. It is worrisome. Maybe after New York Comic Con and we see the figure on display at the booth, more people get to see it. People get really excited for it. We'll get some more orders in. But let's see how Giant Man compares to past HasLab projects. Because in fairness to Giant Man 5,613, it's not that terrible because the target for the Sentinel, the target goal for the Sentinel was 6,000. We needed 6,000 backers for the Sentinel, and it was a price point of $349. Now, the Sentinel, the final amount of backers for the Sentinel was 21,873 backers. I mean, they blew that goal right out of the water with that. That's insane, you know? And the Sentinel, you got various different things unlocked with the tiers. You got the Master Mold head, you got the battle damaged head, you got Bastion, you got female Sentinel as well. X fans were going crazy. Now listen, in fairness, the HasLab Sentinel was one of those army builder figures where a lot of people bought multiple ones. Art of Lucas bought 5. Blink bought 2. I only bought one. But I totally would have bought in a second one in retrospection. But at the time, I was like, oh no, I'm just gonna get one. That's fine. $349. That's good enough for me. You know, there's already a lofty price point, but it is a beautiful figure, and I love it very much. And it got a lot of us excited for the future of HasLabs. So, of course, the following year, we got Galatis. And the target goal for Galatis was 14,000. So that's more than double the backers of the previous year with the Sentinel. So the target for Galactus was 14,000. The final amount of backers was 30,811. And the price point for Galactus was a little bit more. It was at $399. So we're talking $400 for Galactus. The target was 14,000, and the final amount of backers was 30,811. The different tiers were at 16,000. If we hit 16,000 backers, we would get Nova. Everyone wanted Nova, so of course we got there. We got there, I don't want to say towards the end, but it was definitely a couple of weeks after it was announced that we got to Nova. And then once we got to Nova, it seemed that we just started unlocking all of those different tiers. So Silver Surfer at 17,000, boom. We got Morg at 20,000 backers, boom. And then the Head of Doom at 22,000. And I remember thinking, oh, we already hit 22,000, we're done. And no, it went up another 7,000. Now, of course, Galactus and the Sentinel are just characters that people really want. They're oversized characters, so making them as a HasLab makes sense. We're going to pay a little bit more for them. Who the frack cares, right? So we were all really excited to back it. We were all refreshing over and over again just to see where it was at because we were so excited. We really wanted these to get funded. So then last year, we got the Engine of Vengeance, and it was a target goal of 9,000, and the price was $349. The final backing count, and this was kind of going back and forth for a while, was 5,060 backers. Yeah, I mean, at one point it was higher, and then a lot of people dropped out, and it was in the 4s, and then it finally ended at the 5s. And for what we had mentioned already earlier in this episode was why the Engine of Vengeance didn't sort of land, and there was a lot of contention online. So, you know, with Ant-Man having a target goal of 10,000 and having currently 5,613 backers, that's not terrible, you know? And I think the price point at $199 is really, really good. I think that's a fine number. Now, I will tell you, these last few weeks, I have not been going to Hasbro.com and refreshing to see where it is. It's only because someone mentioned this week the HasLab, and I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot that was still going on. Now, of course, there's much speculation online on what's going on why this hasn't funded. A lot of folks are saying that the reason why it's not taking off is because there's a lack of additional figures with the tiers and with the unlockable tiers. And that's kind of creating this discourse back and forth amongst Marvel Legends stands where they're like, what do you mean we were complaining last year that we got too many figures that would never get made as part of tiers, and now they listen to us and they're not giving us figures and they're just doing stuff that's additive. I will tell you where I think the people who are saying that we need figures for the HasLab are trying to say. They're trying to say is that we don't want characters like Madeline or Hellstorm or Mephisto, ones that we really want, that, if we don't fund this project, we're never going to get. We want characters that have already been done that makes sense with this character. So in this case, they want an additional Yellow Jacket and a Wasp. So even if it doesn't get funded, it doesn't matter because we already have how many Wasp figures out there to Giant-Man Dime. And in that regard, that's fine. The only thing I can say to that, though, is then the price of the HasLab has to go up because, again, these figures are about $25 a pop. So if you want to pay $300 and get 3 more figures, fine. I mean, that's your prerogative. One of the things that I think is going on here, there are 2 things I think that are going on here. One, you need people who aren't necessarily diehard Marvel Legends fans to participate in the HasLab. Something like Galatis, something like the Sentinel brings in fans from all walks of life who are like, ooh, I want that figure. I think in general, there is a little bit of a superhero fatigue happening. We're seeing that with the MCU and other properties. So I'm wondering if for Marvel Legends, we're sort of seeing that translate here as well. Let's play an alternate reality and say this was the year we got Galactus. I think Galactus was still fun. I think regardless of any general superhero fatigue, the Marvel Legends fan base is so strong right now that we would still back a character. I think the problem is character selection of Giant-Man. And that's not to say that Giant-Man is not very essential to your display if you focus on Avengers. That's not to say that he doesn't fit the bill of a HasLab. That's not to say that this is not a terrible price point. I just don't think it's inspiring people like me who are diehard Marvel Legends fans since 2002, going to True in high school with my frosted tips to pick up Toad, Thor, and Iron Man and Captain America in that first wave. I think, this isn't really inspiring me. I still have my Walmart wave Ant-Man Giant-Man, and I love that figure. For me, it still holds up. I'm keeping him on display. Let's see what some of the familia on Power of X-Men said. So we polled on Power of X-Men on our Instagram page, thoughts that people had. And I'm going to read them out loud and we can kind of discuss this as a community. All right. So on the Instagram page, I said, let's talk HasLab. Have you backed Giant-Man? And we got 660 votes. And 22% of folks said, yes, I can't wait. So 22% of Power of X-Men community members are backing the HasLab Giant-Man. 78% said, nope. Passed. And then, so I asked, what are your feels on HasLab Giant-Man? Let me see. Yeah, we got a lot in. So I'm just going to read a select few. I'm just going to read a handful of what we got in. So we got one in that said, easy pass, give me an X-Jet Hasbro. And I've talked about, what could they do to really excite fans? And I mentioned an X-Jet in one of our previous episodes, and a lot of people sounded off in the comments being like, no, that would be like $500 to do, one that would be in proper scale with the figures. What are you talking about? So, yeah, I personally would pay $500 for a X-Jet. That does not mean that the market can support that. I don't know if the market can support that, but I would be very happy if we got an X-Jet or a fantastic card or a Quinjet. I would be happy if they moved away from the oversized characters, because I don't know what oversized characters they can do right at this point that wouldn't be of the caliber of Galactus or the Sentinel. I would love Bing Bang Boom quite a bit. I would love something like that, but I don't think Big Bang Boom could support a huge market, tier. Like, it would have to be like a target goal of 4,000, in my opinion, for an obscure character like that. I understand why they went with Hank Pym. I understand why they went with Giant-Man. It makes sense. But again, I'm sorry. This isn't a criticism on needing him for your Marvel Legends display. I just don't think he is inciting a lot of hype from people like us, from people like me who collect Legends, who are like, you know what, this is a pass for me. I don't collect the MCU Legends. I collect Avengers, but I always focus on the Avengers I want. And if it's a character that I'm like, we'll probably get this character again sometime down the line, I always pass. Okay, so we get another comment reads, I'm a Hank fan minus the spousal abuse storyline garbage, but prefer Yellow Jacket. Agree with that. We got I'm only an X-Men collector, but I think this is an absolute must for Avengers collectors. I agree. I think this is an absolute must for Avengers collectors. Why is the goal not 5,000? I think if the goal is 5,000, that's it. Boom, we're done. Maybe you don't get the additional tiers, but you get Giant-Man. I think this is a must. And I'd be curious to see how the numbers break down for Hasbro. What figures sell? You know, do MCU figures sell well because it appeals to everyone in the market? You know, people who could be just casual comic fans who saw the character in the MCU and they want those figures. Do those figures do really well? Do Spider-Man figures do better than X-Men figures? Do X-Men figures do better than Avengers? Are Avengers the best line of characters to do in Marvel Legends? I don't know. I really wish we could see some of these numbers break down. I can tell you, X-Men fans are extremely passionate. We are a passionate bunch. So if this had an X-Men angle to it, I think there would be a lot more hype associated with this. Okay. The price point is great and a huge win for the HasLab experiment. I agree. I think the technology with this figure is great. You know how I feel about my Marvel Legends and the eyes. I cannot wait for the technology used on these eyes to be applied to the 6-inch figures. I agree. This is a huge win. Regardless of if this gets funded or not, the entire team listened to us. Oh, someone just wrote, has been labs. I mean, this could be the second year that we don't get something funded. That's insane to me. That's insane to me. I remember thinking, I cannot wait to get a new HasLab announced. It's going to be so much fun. Meh is another comment. Kind of on the fence because he doesn't meet my aesthetic. Doesn't meet your aesthetic. I like the harness. We've talked about how the harness is two pieces, that it's not like how we get them on like the Cyclops figures where they kind of come out. It looks great. I think they you know what? As we've been talking here, I think they should have added like a Yellow Jacket or a Wasp to this. Make it a bit more dynamic, but I think the actual figure, I'm just looking at the texture on the gloves. I'm looking at those swappable antennas. It looks good. I'm not unhappy with the deco and its rendering. I think Giant-Man is just a lackluster character selection. That's just where I'm gonna end my opinion on that. Please don't come for me. I already have the Chris Evans stands. I don't need Giant-Man stands telling me I'm wrong. He's a great character, truly is, with the exception of the abusive spousal storyline. Hank Pym as a character, I think, makes perfect sense for your Marvel Legends display. You can really tell I'm terrified of those Chris Evans stands. I'm like, I'm sorry, no one else come after me. Okay. I'm upset people won't get this to finish their sets, but Hasbro should have just did a 12-inch. I can't disagree with that. I think this would have been a great Build-A-Figure. I think people would have been really happy with great Build-A-Figure. Someone wrote creepy faces. Yeah, I mean, they're very cartoonish, exaggerated faces. I agree. I'm poor at the moment. I mean, listen, inflation's insane. Cost of living is all over the place. I went to get coffee and like a donut today, and it was like $16. I mean, so I get it. I've never been a penny pincher when it's come to my fandom. And now I'm just like, I don't think I'm going to pick up this Legends because, I have to pay for other stuff. But I have certainly in the last year, with all these like prices being hiked up, not just for our fandom, but for like the rest of the world, I have been looking at the bottom line of things, sadly. Sculpt and articulation lack 100%. lack of bonus figures and display space made me pass. You know, I'm going to say something. I agree on the display space. I don't have the display space for a third HasLab. I don't even have it for one HasLab. And I have Galactus out on our den floor because I don't have anywhere to put him, but I want him out. It is shelf space is legit a thing. We're living in a golden age of Marvel Legends. Familia, I cannot tell you what the world was like when we weren't getting Marvel Legends in, the years, let's say 2010-ish era, right before the return of Marvel Legends. And so in between the two packs we were getting with like Black Widow and Thunderbird and the return of Marvel Legends, there was a dead space where we were not getting any Marvel Legends. It was very sad. We are spoiled right now. We are getting so many figures, and that's taking up a lot of space, time, and money. So, someone says, such a cool build, but I just don't care for the character. I find the stitching weird, especially around the antenna and the glove fingers. Okay. Should be cheaper or have better add-ons. So the common denominator we're seeing here are the add-ons. People really want to see figures. That's just how it is. And again, I think where the conversation is with Hasbro, it's don't do like a Madeline Prior figure, like a character that people want, but now we have to fund a HasLab to get. Do characters that make sense that have already been established. So in Giant-Man's case, do a Wasp, do a Yellow Jacket, do another Avenger, something like that. I think that is your sweet spot right there. Just how it is. Someone says pass. Snoring emoji, or sleeping emoji. Would have preferred a smaller version or one with figures or something related to X-Men. Now, don't take any X-Men comments as like being like, this is what the general market is saying. We are an X-Men specific focused podcast. So we're going to lean into, a lot of people wanted something that was more X-Men related, right? When we were seeing PulseCon, we were like waiting for Marvel Legends X-Men to be like revealed, Lalandra, Armored Psylocke, but we ended up not getting any X-Men. I mean, we got Justice, we got Namor, of course, Namorita, and they look great. Those figures look great, but no matter how great those figures look, I mean, I'm getting Justice, Namorita, and Savage Namor, and no matter how great they are, I was still disappointed in Hasbro PulseCon because I really, really wanted some X-Men figures to be revealed. Guys, X-Men, the hype online for X-Men on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, and Instagram, podcasting, YouTube content, do not underestimate the X-Men, even though the books are kind of going through like, I would say like a low point. We're not really vibing with Fall of X, as you know. It doesn't matter. X-Men fans are loyal. We are loyal as heck. It looks good for those who want him. I'm just more into X-Men. There you go. Also, pretty high numbers needed to back. The larger Sentinel HasLab was only 6K. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's unfair that the Hank has such a high bar to get through. All right, Familia, that's our breakdown of Giant-Man and how it compares to past HasLab projects. Are you backing Giant-Man? What are your feels on it? We're going to be at New York Comic-Con. Obviously, we're going to take photos with it. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get there. I'm going to be like, oh my God, it looks so great. And I'm going to come straight home and I'm going to back it. But we will report about it as we see it. We'll tell you if we have a chance to speak to the Hasbro team, what they were saying. We'll report on all that for New York Comic Con. Again, I don't want to seem disingenuous here because I really like that they did Giant-Man. I think the technology for the figure looks great. I'm excited for what this could mean one day for 6-inch Marvel Legends. But it's just a character that for me, it's a pass. I'm sorry, it's a pass for me. But we have people on the Power of X-Men team and the Power of X-Men community that are backing this HasLab. And I think 100%, if you like it, if you like Giant-Man, if you are vibing with him for your display, you should go back him because I think $199 is a very fair price point. But we will monitor Hank closely as the days go, as the weeks go on, as we get closer to that deadline, we're going to monitor Giant Man and we'll do further breakdowns on it. But leave your feels below, familia. Hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you always get an episode of Power of X-Men. We'll be back to discuss more in Legends in the future.